Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Welcome back, everyone. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. We have Herb Cogliano of Aspire Growth Advisors, which leverages the Scaling Up performance platform, which we actually use here at my PR and marketing firm, Quidar & Co. So I am positive we're going to get some great nuggets of wisdom today. Herb, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lauren. And it's an exciting opportunity to be here with all your guests of the Impatient Entrepreneur. And I'm hoping we can provide some great value.
I know we will. So tell us, who are you? Tell us about your business. I have met a few Scaling Up advisors before, all wonderful people that you're in community with. So what does that mean? What do you do? Tell us.
I think at my essence, I've always been an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I love to work with great people and create companies and opportunities where we bring some great value to the world. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a family business. We were in the staffing business. So I got great joy out of helping people get jobs. Mm-hmm. And we did that for, over 30 years of my career. Mm-hmm. During that journey, as you can imagine, in a family business, you can go through some ups and some downs. Mm-hmm. We went through a down period. We had kind of plateaued, and somebody gave me the book Scaling Up, mm-hmm. The Rockefeller Habits by Verne Harnish, mm-hmm. early 2003.
Okay.
Read that book, and we finally had the playbook to scale the company with more growth and a lot less drama. Mm-hmm. We went on to use that system for over 20 years mm-hmm. as a practitioner. Mm-hmm. I had a great coach and my father as a wonderful mentor and leader. Unfortunately, they passed away. And in 2018, after we exited our companies, I just enjoyed doing this work so much. I decided I would share that gift and help others as a coach scale up their company to achieve the vision and dream that they always had for their company.
Mm-hmm. What was there anything in particular about the Rockefeller habits or the scaling up methodology that really spoke to you?
Boy, that's a loaded question.
It's like, is it like picking one of your favorite children?
Yes. I think what's great about the Scaling Up performance platform is that it meets you where you're at. Mm-hmm. So in the early stage, we had a people problem. Mm-hmm. We weren't hiring the right people. We weren't retaining some of the best people. Mm-hmm. And that created a lot of drama. We weren't targeting the right customer. We didn't have all the best customers, and that created drama. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, it was all about understanding who are the right people you should hire, mm-hmm. who are the right clients you should focus on, who are the right supplier relationships you should develop. Mm-hmm. And when we got clear on how to make better people decisions, the business immediately got better. Mm-hmm. Later down the road, it was about strategy. Were we in the right segment, providing the right products to have a profitable company in which we could grow? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I found what I loved about Scaling Up is that as the business evolved, the use of the platform evolved to a different piece of it that I emphasize more than the others. And that's really been the great journey using it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my first question I always ask all of our guests is, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
I don't know one who isn't.
You have this very patient aura to you. Maybe that's your podcast persona.
Yeah, no, we're not going to get my wife in here because I think there could be trouble. But I think why that's a good thing mm-hmm. is because entrepreneurs and business owners are typically passionate about what they do. And when you're passionate, you just have such an excitement to get to where you want to get to. And anything that keeps you from that makes you impatient.
Yep.
So I think it's kind of part of our DNA.
Yep. I'm ready. I'm ready right now. I have this vision for what I want to do and how I want to help people, and I'm ready for it to come to fruition right now. And as in this new era of your business life, do you feel like you have to sort of manage your clients' impatience, or do you let it run rampant, or is that something you kind of come up against?
You know what? The beauty, Lauren, and you've probably seen it yourself using the performance platform, is that when you have a vision of where you want your company to be, let's say over the next 10 years, and that vision is broken down by where do I want to be in 10 years? Where should I be in 3 years for progress? Where should I be next year? And where should I be next quarter? Because you have that game plan, your patience gets baked in because your expectations are now being measured in realistic.
Yep. That's very true.
Yeah.
We actually just had our quarterly meeting, team meeting the other day, and we were just plotting everything out. Like you do get a lot more patient when the whole team is involved and we're agreeing on what's important and what we're going to focus on. Like, well, just got to let everything else go. So, I'm just curious, do you interact with your local entrepreneurs organization at all through?
My practice is a national, international practice.
Okay.
So all my work is done with people around the world. If there are local practitioners, I welcome them. But I also teach the Scaling Up Masters Business course, and that is a global program. So I have a tendency to get people from all over.
Gotcha. I was just curious because the EO Accelerator program uses Scaling Up as its textbook.
Yes.
And so that's how I know about it.
Yes.
And we have wonderful people like you in our area come speak to us from time to time. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Lauren, do you know that Verne Harnish was the founder of EO?
I did know that.
Yeah.
He came to the North Texas area a year or two ago, and I got to go hear him give a nice speech. I enjoyed it very much. So it was nice to see him in real life versus just in a video or on a book jacket. So what do you do to continue your personal and professional development? Do you read books? Do you go to conferences? Do you lean on your fellow scaling up professionals? I'm just, how do you grow as a person?
Yeah. I think it's all the above. We have a very connected network of global coaches, and we're meeting several times a year, and locally and internationally. And we're kind of tapping into each other's collective intelligence and topical network. So kind of like the EO, you'll bring in great speakers and topics. We also want to be keeping up on best practices in the industry. So we'll go to, I think Scaling Up just formed a partnership with the Chief Executives Forum. So we want to get best practice. We are a believer in not being a isolated platform that we only do scaling up and nobody else is any good and we don't want to listen. We're very big on best practice, taking the best from each area, whether it's cash, finance, HR, operations. And Verne has been wonderful about building a network of industry thought leaders that further enhances the Scaling Up platform.
Great. Are you creating something right now? Do you create your own modalities or methodologies or service lines as within this paradigm?
Yeah, we're very big on the entrepreneurial freedom that each coaching practice has.
Mm-hmm.
So two things. Number one, I've just created a group coaching program, almost like a peer mastermind coaching for 3 to 5 smaller companies that come together and they do their scaling up education. They do their scaling up adoption and executive coaching, and they do facilitated planning as a group.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do it solely with only one company at a time, but I'm finding they're liking the strength of the peer group process. Second thing that I've done recently is we have a scaling up assessment for your company to determine where your scaling up gaps are.
Okay.
But I just created an assessment to determine high impact CEO scores. So you as the lead entrepreneur CEO, what are your individual strengths and development gaps so we can help you scale further as your company scales further?
Fascinating. Are those available for anyone to take?
Yes. And as a wonderful guest of the podcast, all your listeners can go to my website and it's right there on the main page to take advantage of.
We'll put a link in the show notes for sure. And I will be taking it myself.
Wonderful.
Is there anything in particular that you're impatient about right now?
Well, my son is expecting our first grandchild in May.
Okay. Yep.
So I am definitely impatient about waiting for the birth of that beautiful girl. So that's one thing.
Very exciting. Are they nearby you? Will you get to see them often?
They are literally 20 minutes away, which is a blessing.
Nice. Our daughter was the first grandbaby on both sides, so we won that space race. We got to have a little bit of time before anybody caught up, so that was fun.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Great.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit. Was there something, well, actually, you've alluded to it a little bit here. What was the worst thing that happened in either of your businesses that felt like the rug had been pulled out from underneath you and you weren't sure you were going to survive, but looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened?
So we've been around a few decades, but I think the big things that I would highlight is that when you have a leadership succession plan and that leadership plan does not work out, like you work very hard to put the head of a business unit in place. You've been developing them for years, and then ideally they leave or they're just not able to handle the responsibility, the autonomy, and then you have to start back from scratch. And I think that was very frustrating for me. I think the other thing that was frustrating for me in my career is doing a bunch of acquisitions and having some of them not work out. And whether it was the wrong part of the country, the wrong structure of the deal, or just quite frankly, the wrong people that were going to be left to run it after we bought it, created a lot of chaos and drama. And that absolutely was something that I learned many valuable lessons from.
What are some of those things that you felt like you did learn that really, maybe transformed how you tackle the next one?
The people that are involved in that acquisition, the way that you would interview a key executive for cultural fit, core value alignment, purpose alignment, you need to do with an acquisition. And even though it looks good on paper and you want to expand territory and you can buy it at the right value, the real work begins once you own it and you integrate it. And if you don't have a good integration fit with culture, people, and operations, it's a nightmare. So you really have to do your homework about the alignment and that you have a good match.
What are some signals that it is a good or a bad match?
Um, I think it's in the due diligence of that interview process. Like, for example, oh God, this may sound silly, but we were visiting the state where we were going to make the acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
and the owner did not come personally to meet us and pick us
Mm-hmm.
up,
Mm-hmm.
which to me may seem like a simple thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it was an immediate signal to me that they're not prioritizing how big this is and
Right.
how important our relationship should be for each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that reminds me, we have a client who is growing both through, customers and then also through acquisition. They're, kind of 50-50. And they call them partners. They choose their acquisition target based on whether or not they would be willing to have Thanksgiving dinner with them.
Ah,
Like if I can't sit at a table with you for 4 hours, I don't think we can do business together. And I thought that was interesting,
hmm.
that because they don't want the principal to leave, the principal needs to come along for the ride. And so, if it's not a culture fit, then, they cut bait.
Have you ever heard of the 2 beers and a puppy rule?
Uh, I don't know if I've heard one involving a puppy, so please tell us.
Yeah. Do I like you enough that I'd let you mind my puppy for a week and
Okay.
do trust you to have my puppy for a week?
Mm-hmm.
Do I like you enough to want to sit down and have 2 beers with you?
Okay, I think that's also a good one. I like
Come on.
that. Yeah, well, because trust. It's like I might like you. I might think, okay, I want to be friends, or you're entertaining to me. But then you have to couple it with that trust
Trust.
of this is something that's precious to me, and I really would like it back unscathed.
Yes.
I'll keep that one in mind too. um, Growing up, was there ever a time where your parents or your friends or your teachers criticized a personality trait of yours, like, oh, Herb, you're so competitive, or you're too assertive, or you're too emotional, but now as a leader, you realize that what they criticize you as about being deficient is really your superpower?
Hmm. Well, one thing that comes to mind is people think that I'm very kind,
Okay.
and I am,
Mm-hmm.
but they mistake that for weakness, which
Mm-hmm.
I am not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But as a leader or head of a company, you need to balance.
Mm-hmm.
And, the ability to give tough love when you need it is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people would take advantage or try and take advantage of that kind temperament.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would have to have a coaching conversation around kindness does not mean weakness, and we need to get things done. And here's how we can do it together. So that would be an example.
Well, I think that's a really important example. And certainly for me personally, I am a very kind person, and I am very understanding about life circumstances and all that. And I have had team members who are not with me anymore, want to take advantage of that. And it's hard, and you really don't want to harden your heart, and have the solution be, well, I'm just not going to trust people, or I'm not going to be kind anymore, or I'm not going to give time off. I'm going to shorten the leash on everyone. It takes a lot of wherewithal to say, like, no, that wasn't a me thing necessarily. But do you have any examples that you could share, and then I would love to know just kind of, working around that, as I'm sure some of our listeners are similar, that they want to be loving and kind toward team members or clients or whomever, but do need to hold firm boundaries.
I think it goes back to tough love.
Mm-hmm.
If I care enough about the employee and I care enough about our company,
Mm-hmm.
I can be direct,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't need to be direct about their personality or make it personal. but I do need to be direct about what the business needs and what they signed on for the accountability in their role. And I find A players appreciate being direct, being transparent, but also being professional. There's a way you say something, as you know, which makes somebody understand you're being heard without making it personal. And, the one thing I like to say to my clients is that, especially for the impatient entrepreneur, if you think of how long it takes to raise a child, the first 18 years, if they're going to go off to school, think of the patience you needed to have to create such a beautiful young person, adult, from a baby. And I want you to think of the people that directly report to you. They're coming to you with all different amounts of business maturity and experience. And some of them may not be infants, but from a business maturity point of view, they may be in middle school or high school. And you just didn't snap your fingers and high school was over for your kids. You lived through those 4 years. So the one thing that I want them to keep an open mind about is having the patience that developing people is takes time. And the more patience they have with that person progressing in the time, the better off you're going to be with getting people that stay, that are happy, that are developed and promotable. And therein lies the way to grow your company.
Okay, nice. Speaking of picking your favorite child, I was curious if of the Rockefeller habits, like say, someone's starting and everything's, has the same number, or same rating, like a 0 or 1. Is there one you like to start with and you feel like, okay, this is the first domino to tip over?
I think the beauty of our system, Lauren, is that it can be different for every client in every company. For some clients, it's Rockefeller habit number 1. Is the executive team healthy and aligned? It's the only habit that you should do first.
Okay.
And people ask me, why, Herb? Why can I do the other 9 whenever I want? Because if your team is not healthy and aligned, you can't implement the other 9. It's dysfunctional. The other 9 is situational to that company. So normally Rockefeller habit number 2 is everybody in the company aligned with the one thing that we need to focus on, that critical number for the quarter. And if you're not really good at prioritizing the big picture, a lot of people start at number 2. What's the main thing?
Yep.
I have clients that are very good with, I know the main thing, Herb, but my employees don't know what their main thing is for their role. So that's Rockefeller habit number 9. Does every employee know whether or not they had a good day or week at work? Lauren, you would not believe the amount of companies where the employee does not have a job scorecard with 1 to 3 simple KPIs that align to their role that lets them know if they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
More than half of the people I meet in the beginning do not have them.
Yeah, that's something we've only rolled out vulnerably. This is something we've only rolled out somewhat recently, and that we're really we work in a very squishy space of words and things like that. It's sometimes what we do can be very difficult to measure, particularly more on the public relations side. And so, but we've been, hey, let's think about this though. What can we measure? And so we've been diligent about that recently, trying to bring everybody together there. Okay, so What is one piece of advice that you can give our listeners that they can do right now to make their lives or businesses stronger and better?
Well, without being self-serving, I think if you don't know what your scaling up readiness is for your company, that you go to my site and you do the quick scaling up readiness assessment so you will know what your biggest gap is to scaling up. Is it people, strategy, execution, or cash? And once you know that, you can identify the quick one Rockefeller habit that will help you start improving that gap immediately.
Great. Yep. I agree. Well, again, links will be in the show notes. Good. Okay. And speaking of links, all the ways that people can find you will be there. But for those listening and driving down the road, how can people find you and maybe do business with you?
Yeah, it's very simple. You go to Aspire Growth Advisors with an S.com.
Okay, great. We'll drop it in there, and that's where you can get those assessment tools too. So, well, Herb, thank you so much for being here today. It's awesome to talk to you, and yeah, thank you so much.
It has been a pleasure. I hope we'll talk again down the road, and thank you to all your listeners for their time as well.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.